All right, welcome to a very special Pro Football Doc Sports Injury Central podcast. We definitely want to get this in before the regular season of football when there's so many injuries to talk about. We don't have guests anymore. So we're very honored to have Chris Long on here. And Chris, you're probably known for more of your stuff now outside of football than even in football, right? I mean, you're involved in so many different things and such a personality now. And we're thrilled to have you. And you and I have never personally met through other friends, Hardwick, other people. Everyone says great things. But we've chatted on a podcast once before. But welcome to the show.
Doc, it's really good to hear your voice, man. It's good keeping up with the content you're pushing out, man. I've talked about it before. I think it's really important stuff, so appreciate you doing it.
And I got to say that I was in Vegas a couple weeks ago, and I saw this green light, whatever podcast studio that they have in the Wynn there, and I thought, man, that's where you do your stuff from. But I guess you don't. You're still in Charlottesville.
No, we're in Charlottesville, but when we go in there to see our overlords, they got some pretty cool signage, so it makes me feel like we're doing something right, and those folks at Blue Wire are really crushing it. So
I know. I saw them Blue Wire, and I saw the green light pod thing, and I literally was one of these guys. I knocked on the door. I was like, hey, I'm not trying to be that guy, but they kind of gave me a funny look. And
they'll
my
let
wife
you
said,
in.
what are you doing?
Oh, they're friendly.
I was like, I don't know. I was just checking things out, and they're like, oh, what's this Yahoo?
Yeah.
Knocking on the door. I was like, okay, sorry. I felt like a little fanboy. Just
Those doors are nice.
By. Oh, the frontage is beautiful. The whole thing's big time there. Big time
it's expensive.
In the Wynn. My gosh. I mean,
yeah, big money over there, dude.
Big money. Yeah. Chris, before we get really, really started in this, I have to apologize to you and your producer. I kind of made a little bit of a mistake here. I always love having you on. And I had mistakenly thought, I know we had agreed to do a home and home, and I mistakenly thought I was on yours. So I was like, I got to get you on mine. But you were on mine last time, so I owe you two. So I just got to be honest. I messed that up.
It's all good, dude. Dude, I like I said, I'll come on anytime, so you don't even have to worry about it. But as soon as somebody,
I appreciate it, but I owe you.
Their leg as soon as somebody snaps their leg like a toothpick, I'm calling you, dude.
All right, whatever. Look, I owe you two at least.
I'm gonna call you and be like, "Is that broken?" Yeah. Okay.
well, that's why I felt bad. Like as I was doing a little homework before the podcast, I was like, "Oh shoot, I messed that up." I told your producer it was the other. Anyways,
it's all good. It's all
it
good.
Seems like we try to pull a shenanigan there, but we really didn't.
No, not at all. I forgot about it. I forgot you owe me. Now I know. I'm going to get you. Yeah, now you're screwed, man.
So let's jump into some of the things. What do you think about those Guardian caps? How would you feel about wearing those in training camp?
I guess I'd probably feel fine about it. They're doing it. Are they doing it in all the They're not doing it in padded periods, right? They're doing it in more kind of like the thud and shell stuff. I'd probably feel fine about it. Like you're talking to a guy though, that wore the foam insert, like is it all pads too? Yeah, they're not doing. Yeah. I mean, I don't know. I'd have to see how it feels like to really set the edge on somebody and see if my helmet slides to the side or not, because part of the game is still hat and hands. They can say keep your head out of it in practice, but you're using your head to shock a larger offensive lineman and then get the extension you need. Like, you can play the game without your helmet involved, but your helmet being involved is optimal for a defensive end. So I don't know how it feels to have that hit and slide, but it certainly wouldn't bother me, I don't think. I haven't given it much thought. It seems like one of those things that probably feels weird for a day or two, and then you get used to.
Yeah, and I'm sure for your vision's a little bit different because of the strap, and it's just different. And the only thing is, hopefully, players don't get used to now using your head because there's the pad, right? I mean,
right?
Maybe somebody's using more.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
False sense of security.
No, I probably wouldn't. I I probably wouldn't increase the amount of force that I'm putting on, the front of my helmet because of it. I think like it's a good reminder that, hey, like keep your head out when you can. I think even just like having that on your helmet is a reminder to guys, like you don't always have to use your helmet. There are situations that you undoubtedly have to use it, but having that reminder, it's almost like I wonder how heavy it is. I don't know. Guys have complained a little bit about it, but if you can feel it, which I'm sure they can, maybe that's just a reminder, hey, like save the subconcussive blows, because that's really what adds up, right? You guys talk about it all the time. I think like, somebody just asked me if I've had a concussion. I'm like, maybe I've had a couple, but I wasn't like a big concussion guy. But I'm sure I had, thousands upon thousands of subconcussive blows.
Well, that's one of the worries, right? In training camp, there's more subconcussive blows, and and there are incidences of CTE in players that may never had a documented concussion, right? And so, I think the league's trying to do the right thing. Nothing's perfect. Look, you're obviously super sharp at everything. Do you in the back of your mind worry about CTE?
I do and I don't, because I feel like there's probably a pretty good chance I have CTE or will have CTE. And you can correct me if I'm wrong on any of this stuff, but we know that tau protein is building up in guys' brains after they play. The thing that I think gets a little bit out of control is the narrative that everybody with CTE ends up in like a fiery car crash, or their relationship goes in the tank, or they exhibit erratic behavior, I just think there's this big conflation with a lot of mental health issues that are undoubtedly going on with guys, not only late in their 20s, early 30s, but then into retirement, where you have to face all these existential crises, and you're trying to find footing in a whole new world with a skill set that doesn't necessarily serve you well, and you kind of feel rudderless. I mean, like we don't talk enough about all that. I'm not denying the existence of CTE, but the thing that drives me crazy a little bit is when you hear about a tough story, name a player that went through something after football or was behaving erratically. We cut right through the possibility that could be a whole host of mental health issues, which, that's kind of what we do in society. We don't pay enough attention to it. And then we stigmatize everybody as having this condition, which is very real, but we don't tell all the success stories of the guys after football who are leading very quiet, happy lives or successful lives. You don't hear about the good news. And I think also it's like when you hear about players dying, right? Dying early. It's tragic, but thousands and thousands and thousands of players have played in the NFL. And, for every tragic story, there's a blip on the radar screen of a guy who died at 93 and played in the 50s. And you don't hear anything about that guy, and nobody's making a big deal about it, because I do think there's some pretty opportunistic people when it comes to this CTE stuff. And I think in the wrong hands, this information can be used kind of irresponsibly. So do I worry about it? Yeah, but I also have a dad who played 13 years in the NFL, in a time period where he sustained way more subconcussive blows with worse equipment and played all up and down the line. And he's doing great. And he's extremely sharp, level-headed, even-keeled. And I think for every bad story, there's 5 good stories. So I'm going to choose to be optimistic, and I'm working the neuroprotectant stock, you know what I mean, on the daily, and hope for the best. Keep my mind sharp, stay busy.
Cool. Wait, your dad played in the NFL? I'm just joking.
Yeah, a while. about 26 dog years. He had 13, so he did 13. So that's probably 26 like modern day football years in the NFL.
Yeah, no question. Just joking. I'm really glad that you said that. We haven't talked at length about it, and you echo a lot of my sentiments. And I would love to go into it even deeper, because one message that I would love to get out there to players, ex-players, yes, CTE is real. Yes, CTE is something to be concerned about. whether directly because of CT or otherwise, I've had 5 friends go south and be diagnosed with CT. And they weren't all football players. There were some other sports and other things, and including people that were stood up at my wedding and other things. So it's very personal to me. And I feel like I'm a player guy. What I want you to tell everybody, and I'd be happy to get out this message with you, with your megaphone, is that CT is real. You got to deal with it, etc. But it's not a death sentence necessarily. Like, you can have CTE and still, as you say, live a productive, functional life. And on occasion, I talk to some players and they feel like it's just inevitable that it's going to get them. And that's a tough way to go through life. And
that's sad. Yeah, that's sad. And it's a self-fulfilling prophecy too, Doc. You know, like somebody hears you're going to be fucked up. Excuse my French, but somebody hears that. You hear it enough. I can remember when the movie Concussion came out and all that stuff was going on, Doc. And I was in my 6th year in the league or whatever it was. And I was going through some mental health stuff, right? Because I was playing for a really bad team. It's a lot of pressure. You know, I have certain mental health conditions that have always, you know, I don't want to say plagued me, but the stuff that I just deal with. And I started to conflate those issues with CTE because of the suggestion that that's where I'm going. And I think that a lot of people enter that darkness after football. It's so scary on its head. And you're like, oh, well, this is also, just so you know, your whole life is mapped out, by the way. You're going to get a divorce. You're going to start losing your mind. You're going to start forgetting things. I have ADHD. I have anxiety. What if I start conflating all those things with CTE? And I'm sure that they can make CTE worse if I had CTE. And I'm not denying that I might have it one day. But I know guys that start wondering after football, am I okay? You know, a buddy will call me and be like, am I all right? Like, all this stuff's going on. And I'm like, well, what are you doing day to day? Like, are you staying active? Are you exercising? Are you busy? Do you have a social network? Like, well, you might be depressed. Like, I don't know. Like, let's not jump to the conclusion that your brain's rotting. You know what I mean? So I
agree.
I'm with you, Doc. It's real. It's real, but I can't
like you,
say like it's going to happen.
I always tell forward players, like, you have to know when it's Monday and when it's Friday, not because you're taking your kids to school. There's got to be something else that you're doing in life rather than sitting around, right? I mean, and you know, I'll take a pass on the Concussion movie. I'm too close to it. There are some, suffice it to say, there's some inaccuracies in the way, but it's a fictional movie based on whatever it is, and I don't know if Nick's ever told you, but like, I mean, the reason why I pause and it's so emotional is Junior officiated my wedding for my wife and I, and was the best man. And within the next year, he passed away. So I can't watch that Concussion movie. I can't do it, you know. But I want to advocate and help players.
It's tough, possible. And my dad's lost friends too. You know, my dad's lost friends. Like, you know, I've seen players kind of change after football. I just get like really upset when I see, you know, headlines that seem a little opportunistic or people that are a little misleading. Like, you know, the Demaryius Thomas thing was tragic, right? It was tragic. He was suffering from seizures, right? He also had a really bad car crash after football. So I just think like some of these things get left out, and there were some suggestive headlines that had to do with CTE, the fact that they found CTE, you know, in his brain. Isn't that what happened? And you know, there was a big jump to a conclusion that that's ultimately what he was suffering from, what was ailing him a lot. And people left out details like, you know, like the car crash. You know, they referenced TBI in 2019 or whatever it was, but then they don't say what the TBI was. And so and these are our peers, and I don't want to say, you know, I don't want to discount the possibility, but I also don't want to just jump to conclusions, because it makes me, you know, like AB right now. AB just might be fucking out there. AB might have a personality disorder. I don't know, but like, he might be going through something that has nothing to do with CT. But I just hate, even with like an AB or something like that, everybody being like, oh, well, he hasn't been the same since Vontaze Burfict. Like, I don't, like, we're all doctors on Twitter now. I don't know.
No,
you're a doctor.
I agree with you.
You're actually a doctor.
on Twitter, who knows? But here's the thing. I agree with you 100% there. And I'm going to say something at the risk of sounding controversial, but I'm not trying to at all. But there is a difference between being admitted to the hospital with COVID and from COVID. There is a difference between passing away with CTE or from CTE. And that wasn't meant to be political at all. It's just medically, let's sort out what the truth is.
No, I'm with you on that. And I just, it's close to me. It's near and dear to my heart, not because I have an opinion, that I have a pet peeve. Like it compounds because like, not only does it bother me, like logically, it also like it pigeonholes a lot of people that I know closely. Yeah. And it also, there's a stigma that we're all crazy after football and like, we're all not there. I'm crazy, but I was crazy before I played football.
I was going to say, you have to be crazy to play football. Like, I would never stick my head in and blitz an A-gap. I just wouldn't do it. I mean, I'd go in and tiptoe and I'd get blown up. It's a pretty
self-selective line of work, Doc. Yeah, it's a self-selective line of work. It's a little...
No question. I want to ask you one question, and I didn't mean for this to be so serious, the podcast. I want to have some fun, too. But you have always had... Good, when we talked before about relationships with trainers and doctors and so forth, now as you see more and more sponsorship deals out there, and every time there's a disagreement for the doctor, there's always a call in the media and the public to say doctors should be independent and not with the team and this, that, the other. Do you think that would work? Do you like that idea?
I don't hate it. I mean, I think that it's important to have team doctors that you're relatively close with, and that you have a rapport with. And I think trainers are really important. Like what I'd like to see is more of a working relationship between doctors and trainers, between like the rehab, and the structural people, like the movement people and the structural people, so that when they say 8 to 12 weeks, we have it very clear. It doesn't just mean 8 to 12 weeks until the guy can be out there blitzing an A-gap, but 8 to 12 weeks until the joint is safe to run on or even move on, or the bone is healed or whatever it is. And then on top of that, you're always going to have people that want second opinions, right? So I think as long as doctors are they don't kind of like they're not punitive, like teams aren't punitive, like underhanded punitive towards players that seek second opinions, I think the system we have is fine. I think it's just the awareness among players that there is an opportunity to go get a second opinion and to access that second opinion. And like and also for the doctors not to feel like they're getting, the players not spitting in their face. It's just like, this is the prudent thing to do. I mean, like, even if it's not even I'm not saying doctors are going to change the way that they talk about something because they work for a team, but there's a lot of pressure among a group of people to come to a conclusion in the NFL. Like, doctors, for the most part, do what's right, but it doesn't hurt to have a second opinion, in my opinion.
I agree with you 100%. What I used to tell players is sometimes I would encourage them to get a second opinion if it was at all controversial. Sometimes I'd say it's really, really straightforward. But if you want to go get a second opinion, go ahead. Or the second opinion might be the MRI. Yeah. And quite honestly, I'd say when you should run to go get a second opinion, this goes for everyone in the world in real life. If the doctor says don't get a second opinion, you should run to go get one. I was always like, go ahead. I was always more worried about who they saw, right? Like, I want him to see a bona fide guy that took care of NFL guys, not a random guy who's trying to make a name for himself and say something different. So as long as you were seeing a bona fide guy, I was always for it because, and look, if they came up with something different than me, maybe I need to reconsider my position. But my thought about team doctors is I think it's really important whether you work for the team or not work for the team. And look, we talked about it last time. More players pressured me to return them to play. Teams never really did. The ownership and GM never did, at least for my situation. It was players themselves pressuring me to get them back. But I think what's important is to have the team doctor be embedded with the team, because the time to build a relationship with someone is not when an injury happens in game. The time to build a relationship is before, in the training room, breaking bread at team meals, on a flight, doing the physicals. And then you can have some rapport and know what guys are about. And that's where athletic trainers are really helpful, because they live with you guys, right? And we as doctors come and go a little bit. Now, I probably had an unfair advantage because I was young enough where I mean, the first 8 years I did the job as head team physician, there was at least one player on the team older than me. So I felt like I was with a group of friends, right?
Yeah.
And by the time I got to Nick Hardwick's of the world, I was definitely older than them. But I mean, honestly, right or wrong, I looked at Nick like he was my little brother, right? And so he knew that I had his best interest. And I think that rapport is very important. But you also should always go get second opinions. I mean, there's no reason not to if there's any worry whatsoever.
Doc, my thing is like, maybe there's an independent arbiter that we can all agree on, like that can kind of like a pool of doctors, orthos, people that like we're like, we all agree they're experts. And maybe the NFL doesn't decide who they are. Maybe players petition to have this pool of experts that are laying in wait, have no relationship, nothing to gain with the NFL. And so everybody feels like this just makes it smoother. Because I agree, if you go to like a doctor that you're like, here's what I want out of this thing. And I don't know where they draw the line on doctors, but you know, people find ways. You know, I would think like if there is a pool of people that we all agree, like these are legit individuals, men and women who can make this call, then we can go to this pool. And the NFL has to respect that, or at least doctors have to respect that, which you would do anyways because of the way you think. And players have to respect that.
Yeah, and that's kind of the way it's kind of gone for the concussion stuff with the, quote, independence and the overseeing and so forth. In the end, it just has to be with comfort level and trust. I mean, the rapport that I think you build with someone before an injury is as important as what they're doing to you when they are injured. And I think that's where, you know, you develop the relationships and so forth and feel like you care. And there have been times the team has said to me, hey, get this guy healthy. And I won't say who, because we're going to cut him. You know what I told them? Don't ever tell me that, because it might jade my opinion. Mm-hmm. I said, look, if you're the 53rd guy on the team, yes, I understand I need to get you healthy because they may replace you. But if you're the best player on the team, my job is still to get you healthy. My job is to get the 53 healthy, get the 63 with the practice squad healthy. Don't tell me when you're about to cut somebody, you might inadvertently jade me to where I'm not releasing him or releasing. And I don't want to be in that game.
Yeah, now I'm going to be slow. Yeah, now I'm going to be,
yeah. I said, that part you just got to leave me out of. Let me be me. I'm going to do my best to get everyone back as soon as you can. Don't tell me that piece of information. Yeah. That's the only place that I sort of drew the line. Let me be a doctor and do it the right way without you make your own decisions. And there was another time there was a player that the team told me. I said, look, and I'm not naming any names, he might have been milking his injury a little bit. Okay, at least medically, that was my opinion. And the team came to me and said, you got to tell him he's got to play. I've heard of it. And I'm like, no, that's not my job. It's your job to tell him he's got to play. It's my job to tell him what his health is. It ain't my job to tell him he's got to play. That ain't me. I'm just a doctor here.
Right. But that's the kind of pressure. That's the kind of pressure I'm talking about. Like, you know, it kind of it exists. Unfortunately, like it's not prevalent, but like, you know, coaches especially because they feel all the heat from upstairs. The upstairs might not put the heat on y'all. But the upstairs is putting the heat on these coaches, and they're the most nervous people in the building, coaches. And they can't wait, you know, like they got to have their people back now. I always see them bothering y'all in the doctor's office like, hey, what's up with this guy? Hey, what's up with this guy? It's like, well, I'll tell you when he's ready. Like, I'll give you a warning, but like the answer's the same as it was yesterday.
Yeah. And there's pressure, Chris, right? Because of sponsorship deals and this, that, the other. And I'm not singling out the Eagles, but since you're a big Eagles guy and green light and the whole thing, and you're 2 rings, one with the Eagles, etc. After the Super Bowl, the Eagles switched their head athletic trainer, head team physician, orthopedist, and head medical person. I'm not making any judgments either way or the other, but imagine the pressure on the new guys coming
Yeah.
in doing right. There's just more pressure.
Oh, yeah.
I'm not saying there's anything nefarious about it, but
yeah.
there's more pressure, and the Eagles have changed a bunch. I mean, if you see that and you're the new guy coming in saying they just won a Super Bowl and they got replaced, how dispensable am I? Right, in terms of the infrastructure.
Yeah,
of the team.
and yeah, you're kind of you don't have that much clout build up, so that you're more disposable.
Yeah, absolutely. So in my Chris Long world, I have now felt like a complete fanboy twice. One to Blue Wire, hey, is Chris there? And you probably won't even remember this, but I was part of media stuff for some Super Bowls. And like you and LeGarrette Blount, I didn't get a ring, but I was at the Patriots after party after the 28-3. And then I actually was at the Eagles after party in Minneapolis. And I was a tiny bit fanboy. I got a picture of you, although I didn't bother you. From pretty up close. You were celebrating with friends.
That's funny.
I got a little
Yeah,
picture
that's
of you
funny.
there. But I didn't come up and say
the Eagles
hello
party
because-
was fun.
Oh, it was. The Eagles party was
good.
that was a fun party. But I didn't bug you at least. But I got a like within 2 feet picture of you. So there's my little fanboy stuff.
No,
okay?
dude, you're the man. You're the man.
All
And
right.
I got to get you on my show. We'll get you on here because we got to have this concussion conversation.
Yeah, and I'd really like to have it and be very serious about it. I do have some thoughts about it. I've talked with Nick at length about it, and maybe we can help do some good. Anyways, Chris, thank you very much. Don't want to go overtime on you. We'll end part 1 of the Pro Football Doc Podcast.
Doc, you're good, brother.
Chris Long, the great Chris Long.
Thank you, sir.
All right, welcome back to part 2 of the Pro Football Doc Sports Injury Central Podcast. And Jacob and Taylor and Justin are on board. Guys, that's our second mistake this week, and I take full blame on this one. That was nice of Chris to come on. I've chatted with him here and there, but I get so confused. Now, I can't even blame you guys, and I can't blame Justin. You guys, look, 6 Score Sports Injury Central has been growing so quickly. I had a different podcast setup when Chris was on last time. I swore that we were doing a home and home, and he was supposed to come on mine, and that last time I came on his Greenlight podcast. But obviously I got that messed up, so he's kind enough to still do it there. You guys got to keep me straight. No, you guys weren't even around when I had done that or full time.
If you remembered all the podcasts you've been on, I'd be more worried.
My apologies.
I was around. That's why I take a little bit of blame for it. Yeah, it's tough to keep the catalog of all the pods you've been on.
I don't know.
We're tracking that.
Well, you were around, but I don't know that you were involved on the podcast side of things. So,
yeah.
I mean, someone texted me the other day, "Oh, you're on the Underdog Fantasy podcast." I was like, "Oh, okay. I'm not sure what that is, but okay." But I guess they quoted us on it or something. It's all good. It's all good.
Yeah, they mentioned you. They had good words.
Yeah, I mean, as long as people know that I'm not. I mean, I try and remember everything I can, but my wife gets mad at me all the time. I told you 3 times what we're doing this weekend with the kids. Well, okay, maybe you need a 4th. It is what it is. All right, what do we got? What do you guys want to go with here?
Well, let's start with what is good news, bad news, or just bad news in general. Zach Wilson. We can run through that process together. We're getting hammered pretty hard on Twitter on that. So
that's the other quote mistake this week, right? And we've owned it. I've owned it. We went with it, even though we weren't, not excuse. Look, took the L. We let Freezing Cold Takes know about it. Fred Siegel, who's also been a podcast guest. Look, right now, it's not an ACL. He's having surgery probably as we speak and record this podcast. And there's some controversy whether it's meniscus trim or repair, bone bruise, nothing to do for the bone bruise. It still wouldn't surprise me if it came back partial ACL. The bottom line is, learned a lot from that. Our medical process wasn't too bad, even though, quote, I was at the Suns flag football game, even though we weren't assigned because it was preseason games and we weren't in the command center. You guys got reasonable video, but it was only one angle because preseason they don't have as many cameras. And it still looked like it was an ACL type mechanism. But in looking at it, it escaped my mind and probably all of our minds that he had a PCL before. And what Robert Saleh said about the loose turf afterwards is germane, because loose turf, you don't tear your ACL. And the PCL laxity that he would have maybe accounts for the shift from too far posterior to normal, as opposed to what I was assuming. I wasn't alone, but I'll take the blame for it. I mean, the other docs weighed in from neutral to forward, which would mean ACL. The bone bruise is what makes sense if the ACL is not torn. We'll see about the meniscus. But, the only thing I regret is in the game of telephone. Look, we took the L, the whole thing. In the game of telephone, as we weren't in our, we have some new people, good people. They're all doing their jobs. It kind of got, in the game of telephone, translated as fact as opposed to video analysis. Look, we never diagnose, right? Diagnosing is, you can't diagnose from afar. And even on the diagnosis front, PFT commenter showed through Twitter, tagged me at ProFootballDoc, what do you think this is? The golf injury, this golf simulator. And I had to make clear that I couldn't give him a diagnosis and tell him specifically like I was treating him without a good faith exam. Here's an impression, who knows, but we never diagnose because that would involve good faith exam and the whole deal. Legally, I can't diagnose. It's injury analysis or impression. And yeah, we didn't first put it out that way. We changed it. But here's the thing also, and I hope people realize, we're fully accountable for all of it. But part of being accountable is we don't delete tweets. We don't delete articles. We may modify here and there, as there's new news, but we don't pull down something. If it's a mistake, which this was, because right now it's not an ACL, we own it. And we probably should go back, guys, to tracking. Last time we tracked, it was 95%. It was 94.8% last time we tracked. But that was a couple years ago, but now we have baseball and basketball. We have a new panel of doctors. Maybe it's fair to track everyone again and get a new percentage. Whatever it is, it is. If it's 87, it's 87. If it's 93, it's 93. If it's 95.6, it's 95.6. I mean, whatever it is, it's never going to be 100. But I think it's going to be our track record on telling the truth is probably going to be as good or better than coach speak track record, and we've shown that. Yeah, so anyways, I think we're beating a dead horse. We don't delete tweets. We don't hide from things. We were wrong on the Zach Wilson. So far, we'll see what happens today. I don't see how that's a meniscus repair on this one, so hopefully we'll get good word. But Robert Saleh said something interesting, Something to the effect of, this was a terrible time for him to be injured. One might argue terrible would be during week one, more terrible maybe. But what he's referring to is what we talked about. Here's a young guy losing all of these valuable training camp practice reps. The reason why Robert Saleh said it was terrible is what we talked about, which is, first of all, there's no good time. Right? But week one would be worse. But he's losing all of the practice reps in training camp. Practice reps as the one with new people, installing new systems, etc. Very valuable. I don't believe, no matter what the news is, and this is pre-news of what his surgery is today, I think it's going to be a tight timeline. I think he's going to miss week one, at least, maybe more. We'll see. But let's say he misses just week one. As he gets ready for week two, can you, during week one, whether he's ready or not, or as you get ready for week two, can you give him all the practice reps? First of all, there aren't as many reps to be had once the regular season is here, because you play Sunday, Monday's more of a walkthrough, a corrections practice, Tuesday's an off day, Wednesday's offense install, Thursday's defense install, Friday's special teams and situational, Saturday's basically a walkthrough. There aren't a lot of reps. And do you give them to Zach Wilson to get him ready for when he's ready? Or do you give them to Joe Flacco or Mike White or what have you? There are not a lot of reps for this young guy. That's probably the biggest downstream. I hope his knee is fine, but that's what's going to hurt here. He's not going to have the normal reps coming into the season. And even if he gets all the reps for week 2 or 3, whenever he's coming back, it's still not a lot of reps, and that's if they're sure his knee is okay. So that's going to be something to watch there for the Jets.
Well, let's stick with quarterbacks. You're talking about lack of reps in the preseason. Jimmy G has that exact issue, and what's the drop dead deadline for him to join a team and actually be able to start for them?
You could argue it's already passed, but it depends.
Right.
It depends. Is it a system that he knows? Like, is it nomenclature that he knows? Right? I mean, different play calling systems. I mean, some of them are totally different. I mean, look, English and Spanish have a lot of overlap in words, but they're completely different, right? Even different languages and different dialects are different, right? And it's about what the language is and what you're comfortable with and getting used to the team. Depends on where he goes, right? Assuming his shoulder's ready to go, which it should be. But it's interesting. He's not doing anything in practice, not doing the combined practice. He's not doing anything. But here's the one thing that I would point out. When Zach Wilson went down and everyone thought maybe it was serious or season ending, guilty. Everyone's saying, Robert Saleh, he came from San Francisco. He knows Jimmy G. Here you go. Here's the fit. I don't know.
Same offensive coordinator as well.
Same offensive coordinator, right? So lingo there would be good. That's a positive. But Here's the thing. If you believe our friend Mike Silver's report, now writing for the San Francisco Chronicle, Mike Silver said Jimmy G, after he signed his big contract, ghosted the team for a couple weeks. And in each offseason would ghost the team for several weeks at a time. Look, and then, of course, when Trey Lance was drafted, he was around in there. So no one's hating on Jimmy G for that, but maybe Saleh, just because you've worked with someone and know somebody, doesn't mean that you love them or don't love them, right? I mean, we don't know. Does anyone know how Saleh feels about him? I don't know. Obviously, he was on the other side of the ball. He would see him. Sometimes being very familiar with a person isn't always the meaning that you love him. Look, Sean McVay was super familiar with Jared Goff, yet he traded him. Less familiar with Matthew Stafford, but he acquired him. So there's a lot that goes into it. It's just not that simple. And yes, it's hard to get acclimated. One of the reasons, now we're going to San Francisco, I think you'd be surprised on Trey Lance. Mike Shanahan's pretty sharp. I think one of the reasons they're moving on from Jimmy G is they're designing a Trey Lance system that only Trey can run. And it's very hard to teach your entire offense 2 systems. So they're saying this is the Trey Lance system. We don't think Jimmy G can run this system anyways, and it's counterproductive to run 2 systems. Remember Josh McDaniels' first try at head coach? Denver Broncos. He had some success. If I'm remembering correctly, he was coaching Tim Tebow. And they scrapped their current system to go with a Tebow-only system that got him to the playoffs and got him a playoff win. But Denver in the future wasn't willing to run that only system, and other teams weren't willing to uproot their offense to run that Tim Tebow-only system. And he never really caught on anywhere else, et cetera. So we'll see what the 49ers have in store with Trey Lance, but it's not necessarily hating Jimmy G, just saying it's not the good fit.
Yeah, we'll have more on Jimmy G on sixscore.com, especially tracking his health and all the behind-the-scenes stuff. It'll be interesting to follow as that plays out. Let's talk about Jimmy G's mentor, former mentor, I guess. Tom Brady, I know it's not health injury related. He's taken personal time away that has a very specific end date, which we found a little odd. But what do you make of him leaving? And I know he's working with the new center. Is that a question mark?
That's interesting. There is some health relation to it, right? Mental health, fatigue. I don't know why Tom's taking time away. I hope it's not that his mom's ill again or anything with his family. I hope there are a lot of personal reasons that don't involve anything horrible. Hopefully it's not anything horrible. Yes, it seems almost scheduled and finite at 10 days. Look, maybe Tom felt it important to be there at the beginning of training camp and to keep his health. He is 45. I need a little break. And maybe this gives the backups a chance to work, not in his shadow. It may not be the worst thing in the world. Maybe it's pseudo-scheduled personal time, as in personal mental health or fatigue. Look, remember, I wrote an article years ago before Sports Injury Central saying maybe Tom Brady's found the fountain of youth. Remember his 4-game suspension for Deflategate? They won the Super Bowl that year. And that was Jimmy G's breakout, right? It's all tied together. Mm-hmm. And they did fine. Right. He was fresh at the end of the season. Maybe he's just trying to stay fresh. Now, I get the center issue. Jensen is out. But you got to remember, he worked with the backup for a little bit already before he took this break. And how much time do you really need with your center? And your center needs more time with your offensive line and the line calls. Look, I don't know if the new guy's I don't know if the new guy's wearing a diaper or not. The whole sweat issue. Look, he's already worked with him, so I don't think that's that big of a deal. I remember one time, it's publicly available information, so I guess I can tell the story. I was in Denver, and I got booed by all Broncos fans. Our center, Nick Hardwick, came over to the sideline. And he had an arm, whatever issue. And Nick's is a friend of the show, been on it before, the podcast. Tough as they come. He's going to get off the field under his own power. He's getting off the field under his own power. He's our center, Pro Bowl center. And Phillip is telling him, go down, go down. Not illegal. If he goes down in the field of play, it's more of a timeout. Phil wanted to get some snaps from the backup in game. So I wanted to make sure Nick was okay. So I walked out onto the field and started checking him. He's coming out of the game anyways. There's no charge timeout to us. And I started examining his neck, which is proper protocol, because if there's something in his hand or arm, how do we not know it's from his neck? So I started checking his neck. The referee saw Phillip taking snaps with the backup center and came over to get him off the field and quick. And he saw that I was evaluating his neck and then let me go for 30 seconds, a minute. And we cleared his neck within 30 seconds or a minute. Phillip got 3 or 4 snaps. He's fine. So, and there were no fumbles that game. So, yeah, you want to get used to your center, but I don't think that's going to be a big issue. They're not going to be center quarterback exchange foibles with Tom Brady.
Do you find it odd the team hasn't said anything on Jensen, released more about his info? They're saying swelling. Oh, we're still waiting
for the swelling to go down.
Yeah. Odd? Not odd. Different. Look, if anyone believes the team doesn't know what he has, I got a bridge to sell you. The team knows. The doctors know. Now, do they know the exact timeline of recovery? Maybe not, waiting on swelling. But you can get an MRI of swelling. You can do a physical exam. They know. They may not know the exact trajectory when he might come back, but they don't want to tell you, and they don't have to tell you. There's no mandatory injury reporting this time of year. But they know. It's silly to say that they don't know. They know, or they have a pretty good idea. They don't want to tell, and that's okay. That's their prerogative.
I want to get your take on one more quarterback. I know it's preseason, so there's a little gap of stuff. There's still injuries, soft tissue stuff approaching week 1. But I think all eyes are on Joe Burrow and how he prepares for week 1 after his appendectomy.
Yeah, the appendectomy, something went on where he needed antibiotics afterwards. Maybe they were just being extra safe with that PICC line IV in his arm. He's quote back at practice, 7-on-7 is not full go. Did he lose some weight? Does he need some conditioning? He'll be there week 1. All right, he'll be there week 1, but his course after appendectomy was a little bit harder than most, but he'll still be there week 1. But the other good news you haven't asked me about yet is I saw, was it yesterday or this morning, Matthew Stafford, full practice, 11 on 11s, the whole deal with his whole elbow issue, etc.
Yeah, it's definitely good to see. We teased some info on Michael Thomas too. We got an updated article coming on him at sixscore.com. You're seeing something new in the video from him. I know he hasn't played in preseason or anything like that.
Well, yeah, he probably isn't going to, right? But that's a lot of teams do that. But you got to understand, Michael Thomas's SIX score of 59 was issued in May. It was issued based on what his progress was in May when he was still limping after his foot ankle surgeries. Didn't think he was right. He has since made some good progress. I've seen a host of videos now where he's much improved. In May, before he passed the physical, didn't play in mini camp, didn't practice, went on PUP to start the season, didn't practice. We thought there was a chance he would miss a few games at the start of the season based on trajectory of healing from that 2020 injury, right? 2020, 3 surgeries, missed all of 2021. We were worried he'd miss some games at the start of this year. His recovery has accelerated. I don't think he's going to miss games. Do I think he's 100%? Not yet. So his 59 was based on missing some games for a season fantasy draft. Look, do I think he's going to get 1,700 yards like he did in 2019? No. He's, in the high 70s now? I mean, so we have changed his SIX score. The SIX scores do change. So go to the fantasy toolkit that you put together, Jacob. It's on the landing page at sixscore.com. And they do change. We do modify them. It's a living document. And ahead of week 1, we'll have a week 1 score. The scores right now are more for fantasy drafting, what to expect out of a season. Week 1, for example, Michael Gallup might be a 0 week 1, not ready to play. So that's why he has a lower SIX score now. But that SIX score now is not what his week 1 score is. It's a season projected SIX score for fantasy purposes. And ahead of week 1, we will have the individual scores. There's a lot of new things happening at Sports Injury Central. There will be, look, we started with college football. We have a SIX score tab that's coming that will show a running back's health one against another against the defense front 7 that they're playing. So we got a lot of different things in SIX scores and other things coming up. A lot of exciting news, etc. Changes coming. Another one just got launched, right? We're featured now on FanDuel.
Yeah, we're on the duel.
We've been the FanDuel official injury expert for 2 years now, but now we are featured on the landing page bar, the only outside source on for the duel, FanDuel's content component. So we're proud of that. We're going to continue to grow with what's going on.
Let's jump to Beast of the Week. I know Tatis is big in the news. We'll have more on Tatis. We're doing some forensic work on the class of ball and steroid and fact-checking his excuse. But I know we posted that now is a great time for him to have the shoulder surgery. He's going to be out for a long time. But let's get 30 seconds a minute on Tatis, then we'll jump to Beast of the Week.
Yeah, Tatis. Look, we wrote the article. Clostebol is not used in the U.S. for ringworm. Clostebol is a substance that's an anabolic steroid that Olympic athletes and others have been popped for. The only thing that I found interesting is Dad doubled down. We often say, if you're going to give a dog your homework excuse, show me the dog. Show me the teeth marks on the homework or the ripped up pieces of paper. To some extent, Dad is. I get his comments didn't go over well, but the medication, Propofol spray that he says his son used for the fungus, and by the way, ringworm is not a worm, it's a fungus. The spray that he used was Propofol. And I've never heard of it. It's not a medication sold in the U.S. But if you look at the active ingredients from our friend Google, it's clostebol and neomycin, an antibiotic. So clostebol is in it. It's on the label. And we're doing some research on what it is. We've got some reaching out to our medical friends in the Dominican. And I will tell you this. Look, in the Dominican, kind of like in Mexico, if you've been to Mexico, if you need medicine, you don't go to the doctor, you go to the pharmacia. And the pharmacist gives it to you over the counter. You don't need a prescription. I know that Propofol, that medication, is readily available over the counter in the Dominican. Now, when did Tatis test positive? We'll get there and we'll work through what the treatments are. But, look, are we to the point of this is believable, plausible that this was an accident? Don't know yet. But in theory, it is readily available and it does have clostebol. And look, you're responsible for what you put in your body. That's why he accepted the suspension. Even if that's what it was and it was accidental, he still is suspended. Your only way to get out of it is Ryan Braun, chain of custody, or the B test sample wasn't positive or something logistically went wrong. All right. So anything else you want to talk about? Are we moving on to Beast of the Week there?
I think the Beast of the Week is Chris Long, just for coming on and talking real like that with you, Doc. That was fun to listen to.
I hope he's not.
Let's move on to Beast of the Week.
I hope he's not mad at me there, because that was an honest mistake. I was like, we're supposed to do a home and home. I thought I did his. I don't know. You guys got to keep me straight. I don't know what I'm doing.
We try.
From this moment on, we got you, Doc.
Starting now.
Not dwelling on anything in the past.
Did you hear that out of Taylor? We tried. That seemed like a little subliminal message in there.
I think Taylor, do you want to start off with your nomination?
Yes. This is a Little League. They're starting getting ready for the World Series, and there was a kid that looks taller than I am. Came up to the plate with not batting gloves. He came up with rancher gloves. Like working on the farm gloves. And first pitch, crushed a home run. I've never hit a home run, so I'm already wild already. So, but he's a massive kid. That was a massive home run. But I think those are the only gloves that would fit him at this, So I don't know if you guys saw
do you know where he's from? Was he a ranch hand from somewhere?
Yeah, he plays on Wyoming.
Oh, well,
Wyoming against Utah is the clip. So
yeah.
It's authentic then. Wyoming, like he's on a ranch, the ranch hand. That's it. Now,
yes.
The question is, do you think he used the ranch gloves because nothing else fit? Do you think he used the ranch gloves because they're the most comfortable and they fit in there? Do you think he used them because he didn't have access to regular batting gloves, or they didn't fit him, or something, or is that just his thing? That is this
right.
Like his signature that he wears ranch gloves? Does anybody know?
I think I just want to see more of it in baseball. Just use different kind of gloves, and also I think maybe he's setting himself up for an NIL deal once he gets to college level. He can have ranching gloves that he sells specifically. So that's perfect.
It's a third eye thought right there.
He's a beast for hitting the home run, and he's bigger. But isn't that always the way it is, though? I mean, I remember when I was little growing up, which is a long time ago, when it seemed like the U.S. didn't fare as well. It was always the team from Japan or Taiwan, and the pitcher would be 6'3" and 190 pounds, and he'd throw a shutout and hit the game-winning home run, right?
It's always the kids that mature the quickest. Yeah,
which is why I'm actually a little bit surprised that we haven't seen more females. Because maturity level and growth spurt, that this little league aged, we've had some. I'm a little surprised that we haven't seen more.
It has been a little bit,
just some maturation rates and what have you. But no, that's a good one. But what else you got?
My beast of the week is also baseball related. The Pirates outfielder Rodolfo Castro sliding to third. Phone flies out of his pocket. But Doc, we didn't talk about this before. You alerted me to the real beast of the week, which is
look,
not wanting anything to do with it.
First of all, you're a beast if you can go up to plate with the cell phone on, okay? And obviously he had it in his back pocket in the dugout, forgot to put it down. Yeah. Whatever the thing is. I mean, look, it happens with me and my kids, and they're little. They don't even have phones. But, you go to any restaurant nowadays, half the people are like, kind of stuff.
Right.
So it's a beast
that never happened to any other baseball player where
that he got hit with it, that he got a hit with it, and then he was sliding into third. It came out of his pocket. But the beast, I think, is the third base coach. He just looks at, look, if it was a batting glove or a shin guard, he would have taken it, right? He looks at the cell phone. You got to look at him, and he just like pretends he sees nothing. He's like, nope, you're on your own. So I think he's the
held
beast
it out
there.
to hand it to him, and there's a 2 Mississippi.
At least we're old enough to never experience that, right? I know we're definitely younger than Doc, but we were definitely. I had a Razor at 16, so when I was playing sports, I wasn't thinking about no phone. Maybe my Game Boy, but yeah.
let me tell you, I've done what the coaches, that third base coach, did one time. I had fellows with me, and it was a home game, and we have a team of doctors, and at halftime you have a lot of IVs. And there's some guys that always want their IVs. And I would start most of them, but then they would finish them with the pressure bags and so forth. So I still remember the second half of a game, and I got out on the field. The other docs were cleaning up stuff or whatever, about to kick off. And we were kicking off, so we were on defense first. But an offensive lineman came out attached to an IV still. And my assistant doc is holding the IV bag as he's walking out. Look, first of all, finish the bag. Second of all, if you don't, an extra 100 cc's isn't going to matter. Let's get on with this. Okay. And
right.
He was on the bench with it. I just took one look at him and the two of them, and I just walked away. I said, "You're on your own. I'm not gonna get caught on TV with this. I'm not gonna get yelled at for this. Good luck. You're on your own. I know nothing." And that's kind of what the third base coach was. So I'll give it to the third base coach that he's the guy. But I have my runner-up here. I think it's pretty good. My boy Melvin Gordon, formerly of the Chargers, now with the Broncos. I'm sure Justin can show this. Apparently he had a foot contusion, and he's doing some rehab on the side. I don't think it's even individual. And he's got a cell phone in his sock. And apparently a reporter said, "Oh, look at the pad on his foot." And he quote tweets and says, "That's my cell phone." I thought that was pretty funny. That's a good runner-up to me.
Sir, that's my cell phone.
Yeah, he said, "Sir, that's my cell phone, sir." I mean, just like that wasn't a lottery ticket, right? It wasn't a lottery ticket for
Pete Alonso, with a buck shoulder.
Pete Alonso. It was field charts of where to play.
Yep.
So lots of
exactly.
So photos and videos do lie. It's not just Zach Wilson's play. Anyways, I'll give it to the third base coach there. The cell phone was pretty good. Really, thanks for joining us this week. ProFootballDoc Podcast. Chris Long, thanks again. I owe you 2, I guess. Good guy. And we got a banged up wrap up to the season for the podcast. Next week, we're scheduled to have kick off college football season. And a guy who's huge in college football, especially the SEC, Clay Travis, will be our podcast guest next week. And then we're going to kick off NFL season right before Labor Day with Jim Rome as the podcast guest. And then on Labor Day, what we're going to do is really go through all the new releases and field views and whatever. And we won't have any more guests during the regular season. Too much content. You guys will be stuck with the 3 of us here as we're on this year.
Fun, yeah.
So Clay Travis to kick off college football, Jim Rome to kick off NFL season, an explainer of all the new features as part of the podcast on Labor Day, heading into week 1. And away we go. So thanks for watching and listening, and we'll keep you up to date. Always go to Sports Injury Central.
Quick news, real quick. They suspended the outfielder for having his phone in his pocket.
Oh, they did?
That's a late edition of the Beast of the Week.
Well, yeah.
Sorry,
guys.
And
Didn't mean to interrupt you, Doc.
And maybe the third base coach avoided suspension. He didn't touch it. I'm joking.
There you go. Hands off.
He wouldn't have been suspended, but he was like, I don't. He didn't even shake his head. He just pretended not to see it. He just rolled his eyes and pretended not to see it.
He looked away.
I see nothing. All right, guys. We'll chat with you this week and next week for the podcast again. Thanks for listening and watching.